Lauren, if you wouldn't mind hitting record on this, and to all the attendees, we are recording this session and we will have a playback available on our website about 2 or 3 days from now. Also, just so you know, your camera, as if you're an attendee, your camera is not turned on and you are not able to have audio. So rest assured, if you're still in your PJs, that's perfectly fine. We can't see you, but you certainly can see us. So just a couple of notes, housekeeping notes. You are in the right place if you're here to learn about 3 ways to get your data working for you with the EdFi Alliance. And if you wouldn't mind, if you do have questions, feel free to ask them at any time during the presentation, but please throw those into the chat and I will be monitoring those throughout Sean's presentation, and I can interject and ask those questions as we go along. So without further ado, we will just jump right into it. My name is Caroline Kazmersky. I am our Director of Communications and Marketing, and I've been at the EdFi Alliance going on, well, this summer will be 6 years. I know, Sean, you've been at the EdFi Alliance for a similar amount of time, and we've been working together for that entire time, which has been great. So I'm excited to introduce my colleague, Sean Casey.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Yes, we have been joined at the hip by interoperability, right? But it's good to have a chance to talk with you all about this today. This is a short webinar. The idea is we're really just trying to flesh out some entry points that we hope will be useful for you in putting your data to work for you to support your learners and educators. If you have questions or follow-up ideas or things that you need guidance on, you can scan that QR code in my my business card right in the corner of the slide there and get my contact information. It's a really easy way to get in touch, schedule some time, or shoot a question if you've got it. So let's start by grounding our agenda. Why does data matter? This is a really fundamental and basic question that you all have very good answers for, I'm sure, in your own context. I'm borrowing a phrase that came out of one of my recent district meetings that I love, and I've cited my source, but I've been using it frequently, which is data is our compass, right? We're not operating by hunches anymore on what's good for kids and what's good for learners. We're really using data as our compass. And this, calls into question, well, why does interoperable data matter? And the idea here is that interoperability makes your data connected, right? Across systems. It makes it fast and current, and it makes it useful and usable. And so some of the common challenges that we see in education are listed here on this page, right? You've got data, there's no shortage of it. It's probably siloed or pocketed in lots of different systems around your district or around your school system. When it's siloed in those various systems, that might mean that it's not comprehensive. It might mean that it's not very updated. It might mean that it's difficult to get a complete picture of your learners and where they need help, where they're succeeding or where they're struggling, because you're only getting slices or fragments of the picture across all of those different systems. And there's no judgment implied in these bullets. My school districts over the years, before I joined EdFi, had these same problems too. We all do, because if these are results and consequences of proliferation, great proliferation of ed tech that we've bought for all these different point solution type purposes. But we need to knit them together in order to get the true value out of the investment and the effort we've put into all of these system implementations. We really need that data to be flowing across them so that we get the latest and greatest and most comprehensive picture of our learners and what kind of help they need. And just to paint the picture and illustrate a little bit what this complexity looks like in most of our environments, every one of these point-to-point connections that you see here between on-premise solutions, between apps that you've deployed, between things that you subscribe to that are SaaS solutions, like all of these different applications and in types of systems that you've procured or maybe even designed and built yourself, those point-to-point connections really equate to people, database administrators and system administrators and technical folks or people that are put into technical roles that have to get the data manually from one place to another. usually with some level of transformation or conversion or you name it, to get it exported from one place and into a format where it can be imported into another place. And you can see from this diagram that just isn't a sustainable direction. And I'm sure that you're feeling it in your school system too. We usually can't add full-time employees every time we need them. We usually have to figure out these economies of scale to make do with the capacity we have. That's typically how school district budgets operate. We want to save those expenditures of new staff and headcount for classroom teachers, right? To keep those student teacher ratios low. We usually can't add them in the technical departments or technical teams every time we need them. So we have to figure out how to manage this more at scale and how to make this more centrally managed. And so as you go down this route, you start to realize some of these benefits by making your data interoperable. I mentioned the complete view of your learners a couple of times already, probably. The two-way data exchange can happen seamlessly where you configure it one time according to your policies and then it runs, right? And you just manage anytime there's an exception or a challenge or an issue, but it's policy-based management. It puts you in control of your data flows, right? Not third-party vendors. It puts you in charge of those things. And it positions you to really choose the best tool for the job, to have best of breed tool choice that works in your environment. It does the things you need it to do, as opposed to being forced or limited in your choices. And so what that starts to look like as you adopt and utilize this data standard and these open source tools that the EdFi Alliance and the community provide and use every day is that now you have that current set of data centrally in your environment that you manage. It's not all pushed out to the edge in these point systems. You actually configure this full sort of 360 understanding of your learners fed by multiple systems that's under your control. And just to show this in a slightly different dimension, if you think of this as a left to right process, you have source systems like student information systems, assessment systems, learning management systems, even financial systems and HR and data type systems. All of those are really valuable and they do certain jobs for you that are key to administering or operating or even instructional purposes in your district, right? But they can all build what we call an API client. It's a piece of software that allows that tool to exchange data into your operational data store, this open source piece of technology in the center that is provided to you as you join the EdFi Alliance, so that all of those source systems can feed this central set of information that you manage and control. And then you can use that for lots of purposes downstream. You can use it to roster your third-party tools. You can use it for analytics, which is why a lot of people come to the EdFi Alliance in the first place. Joining this community, they need interoperable data so that they can ask interesting questions of that data and really understand insights about their learners and how best to support them. So to get back to the core agenda for today and the thing we wanted to focus on are what are these three ways that we've created for you to really get started in putting your data to work for you. And it boils down to three things. You can start by learning, you can start by trying, or you can start by committing. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how you can do each of those pathways. Basically, pick what fits best to your style. So if you're a person who likes to learn a lot about a subject before you dive deep into actually implementing it or putting it into place, we've got a learning track for you that we call the EdFi Academy, where we've built out content for folks that love to begin by learning and by training, where this EdFi Academy is a repository of content that speaks to both technical and instructional audiences. It's a free set of resources. It's very flexible and modular. You can go through it at your own pace. And we've got it published and available for you on our website. And there's the direct link to it, academy.edfi.org. These are some of the benefits that we've tried to bake into this offering for you. You've got these step-by-step modules that align in a scope and sequence to an overall course, notifications that help you to keep on track and to just manage your progress. Super flexible in terms of your platform and anytime, anywhere access. Self-paced, right? and then very connected to other aspects of the EdFi community that as you go down this journey, you will probably want to leverage because of the power and number benefits that EdFi community members experience. And then, as I mentioned, we know from a lot of implementation experience that the most successful projects tightly couple instructional leaders with technical leaders, right? We call it a transformation team. And that means you bring your people who are hungry for data to solve problems. That's your program people, your instructional people, with the folks who run and manage the systems in your environment. And that's the technical expertise, right? And so we're joining educators and technologists in this training. There are things that they do together in those course modules, and there are things that speak separately to their strengths and competencies. So that's the first path, is the learning or the training path. The second path that we'll talk about is the trying path. If you're a person who loves to just jump in and start figuring something out by doing it, we've got a path for you. And we have this concept that we call starter kits, which are built around priority use cases that others in the EdFi community have solved for and that they found really beneficial results from doing this work. And many community members have rallied around these priorities, these priority use cases, to define the data elements in them, the visualizations and data tools that come out of them, and the learnings that they encountered that are basically packaged up for you to accelerate your efforts in solving for a similar problem in your environment. And so the notion here is we've tried to make this dead simple and very streamlined for you to go through the process of having a demo and a sample app with sample data that helps you understand and get the vision around how to tackle a certain priority problem with data. And then we help you unpack that and realize really the sample app is a solution template for you. We help you load your own data into it and get this test environment built out in your own environment in your school district so that you can really build out the application that is matched to your district's needs and fed by your district's data. And it gives you a fast.
Oh,
I'm sorry?
maybe that was just okay. Sorry. It was just for me. You cut out. I'm so sorry. I interrupted you. It
No
felt like
problem.
you were on, you cut out
No,
there.
no problem.
Oh, everyone else says it sounds good. Sorry.
No problem. But some key things I would highlight about this process is that these priority use cases have had lots of sets of eyes on them. Other folks have rallied around this to define these priority use cases, to field test them, to define the things that you don't have to redefine yourself, right? And to give a consistent ask of our source system vendors, like our student information system vendors, where we need to unlock a bit of data in order to solve this problem. That's already been figured out and shared. And so the idea is for you, that may represent a really good entry point for you to start with this interoperability work. And there's a link in the slide there. We call it How to Use EdFi. If you go to edfi.org, you'll see a How to Use EdFi menu, and there's a whole array of those starter kits that are published there. But let me show you one just to spotlight it and the kinds of things you can expect. These are conventions that we followed with all of the kits, so one is a good exemplar for the rest. This one that I'm highlighting here is the Ensure Equitable Access for Students starter kit. That's a little bit of a mouthful, but student equity is super important to many, many, many school systems across the country. We hear this all the time. It's a common refrain. It's also an umbrella of use cases. There's a lot of things that you could solve for to try to improve your student equity challenges in your district, or just ensure that all students have access to opportunities. What we chose to tackle with our community really leading, we had about, I think we had about 30 agencies that were involved in defining this, was access to educational opportunities for all kids and participation in your educational offerings by all kids. So the idea was, let's make sure all of our students have access to advanced courses, to career and tech ed courses, to things like that. And then let's understand, are they all participating at a level that is equitable? Or if we see gaps or if we see underrepresentation, that gives us the insight we need as an administrator to make program adjustments to resolve that. But when you go down this user journey of trying to solve an equity priority or an equity challenge with data, what you'll find that we've made available to you is we've surfaced the common questions that you and your teammates at your district would want to know the answers to, like how much time will this take, what systems will be involved, which people or roles in my school district should I involve in this, what are the technology implications for it. Those are all fleshed out for you up front so you know what you're getting into. And then we also give you in the kind of the lower right part of this slide an overview of the steps involved. And so this is a slider bar that you can go through and just indicate step one is to try out the demo, right? It's just an on-demand demo with a little slice of sample data in it. Step two is helping you spin up your sample app so that you can socialize that with your cabinet and your leadership in your district. And then the rest of the steps will take you through the process of making that sample app your own. And then as you go through that, that sequence of steps, you'll end up with a usable and useful data tool that came out of these field implementations of folks solving for like problems in their environment. And so I'm just giving you a couple screenshots of things that might be of interest to you. This is a data visualization and a tool called Power BI that is made available to you as a part of utilizing this starter kit to come up with your own solution. And what this is really highlighting, just at a very quick glance, is filtering for male and female participation in our bilingual program in our district and in our gifted and talented program in our district. And you can see from this sample data, this is just anonymous sample data that I'm using here, but you can see there's an interesting pattern that we see where females seem like they have an underrepresentation compared to males in both of these programs. It actually looks like it's about a 50% difference in both cases. And so what I would say is the insight that leaps off the page there for me, if I was a district administrator, is underrepresentation, right? And the actions I would take are some of the things in those bullets. Like I'd probably go talk with my specialists for those programs, and I'd probably look into referral decisions that we're making to see if there are some patterns there that are leading to what we're seeing in the data. One other example, just to finish painting the picture for you a little bit, you can also look at your discipline outcomes through this equity lens, and this starter kit helps you do that as well. And so what we're filtering for is, again, with the female and male, just for a simple comparison to look at in our data, looking to see for serious discipline outcomes like in-school suspensions and expulsions, which have a huge impact on continuity of learning, right? Because they take the student out of their normal daily learning environment and put them into an alternative one, or just remove them altogether. We see a disproportionate amount of females that are being given these in-school suspensions and expulsions, or at least in-school suspensions compared to our males. And so again, that's probably an insight that I would take into a conversation as a central office administrator with my campus assistant principals, to have a conversation to say, like, look, this is what the data is showing. Can we dig into this a little bit deeper to understand what's happening and just make sure there's not a pattern that maybe we weren't aware of before, right? So that we can do something about it. That's the idea. This is the kind of tooling and solution and really just useful data tool that you end up with by going down the route of utilizing one of these starter kits. And then the third method, so we've talked about starting by learning, starting by doing, right? That was the academy was starting by learning, and the starter kits as the starting by doing approach. The third one is really this idea of committing and working through partnerships. And there's a few things that you can do here. You've got some options if this is a way that you like to work in your district, where we've got what we call managed providers, which are companies that have taken the open source technologies from EdFi and they've package them into SaaS offerings, right? Software as a service offerings that give you support, they give you onboarding services. There's oftentimes a speed aspect to this that might help you stand up this interoperable environment more quickly because of the benefits of using SaaS solutions. And so that's a thing you might want to be interested in. We have a number of them. We have 5 now that are badged as EdFi providers of these managed offerings. Or you can start with these priority use cases that I mentioned from that how to use EdFi menu on our website and begin with providers, source system vendors that are already certified or that are already badged for supporting the data requirements for starter kits or for multiple starter kits. And so there's links in this deck for you to follow. You'll find those under the for vendors or under the vendors menu on our website. And starting early with your vendor is a really good way to go, just because if they're new to interoperability, that gives them a little bit more lead time to pursue the work that they need to make that support available to you, right? Several of them have been working with us for a long time in projects all across the country, but there's always vendors that are maybe newer to the work that these resources that I'm posting here can support you in how you make the ask of the vendor to support the use case you're trying to support for your kids. And then if you need help, so let's say you try one of these 3 routes, right? You try the learning route or the doing, the trying route or the committing route with a partner. If you run into problems or you have questions or you need some background information or whatever the case might be, we have a number of things that we provide you to support you in this journey. So we've got community tools such as Slack, which is a great way to communicate and collaborate with other community members. We have implementation support, like in-kind support that we can provide you directly if that's the challenge that you've got. And we also have product support. If you basically like a ticketing system, if you've got issues with how to configure something, we've got a number of ways to support you. And really, the way you begin for all of these 3 methods that we talked about today is to go to our website, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's a blue Get Started button. If you click on that, it'll take you to that Create an Account form, just a really quick little online form, and it'll provision you automatically into all of the tools that give you access to what we showed here today. And then, of course, you can ping me with my contact information, either this email here or if you scan my QR code at the beginning of the presentation, and I would be happy to help you or help you get started. And then the very last thing I've got up on screen, Caroline, do you want to speak to the Tech Congress and this event opportunity that's coming up soon?
Yes. Can you see me and and hear me? I think I'm having major connectivity difficulties on my side of things. So sorry about that. Yeah, so we've got the Tech Congress coming up in April. And this is really an event, it's a discussion-based event, so it's not your typical conference where you sit and get, although we will have some sessions that are geared for new to EdFi attendees.
We may have lost Caroline. I'll just chime in and say this event that's coming up in April, the Technical Congress, this is a deep dive convening that really for folks that are very involved in their implementations, great event for them to just get into the weeds with other folks and tackle some of the problems that they're encountering together. If you're newer to the work and you're not that far along, there will still be ways to engage that we think are useful and fruitful for you as a person who is a newcomer to the work. But we would definitely recommend that you send or bring your technical resources and folks to this convening, because I think they'll find it very helpful. It's very frank, and we put it all out on the table and really try to tackle some of the thorny issues that we're trying to address in the field. Some of which are technical debt type issues that have accrued in ed tech and in K-12 for a long time. And we're trying to do our best to navigate through those and make some progress on solutions together. So we would love for you to join us at the Tech Congress.
Yes, and this is Lauren here. I put the link to Tech Congress in the chat, and if anyone has questions, the recording will be live on the website, and we'll send an email around to everyone with this information.
That sounds great. Appreciate it, Lauren. Did we have any questions that popped up in the chat that we should talk about?
I don't see any.
Okay.
Eric, did you have any questions? I know you said Richard says there's no questions, but if no one has any questions or anything or chat, please feel free to reach out to Sean. And like I said, we'll send a recording to this for everyone who is here.
That sounds good. Thank you, Lauren, and thank you folks that attended and made time. I know you have a lot on your plates. Appreciate you spending a little time with us. Have a good rest of your day. Thanks all.